review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is the author of the book, The Very Best of Care, no other than Miss Julie Hatch.
Hello, thank you. Nice introduction.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Julie. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. I am the author of this medical thriller, which comes after many, many, many years of working in Western medicine in the hospital. I've got 30 years plus of working in pediatric and neonatal intensive care unit. So many years of excitement, high adrenaline, sick kids that get better and go home. So this book, so that's the last 30 years. I'm also an acupuncturist. I left Western medicine 10 years ago and became an acupuncturist in Eastern medicine. So I blend the both of them. But in this book really draws on my experience and my love for my time in Western medicine all those 30 years.
Indeed, Miss Julie Hart. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. How did you develop the central themes of caregiving and compassion in the novel?
So much of it is drawn from my experiences. Um, People that I worked with, people that I knew, patients. It's all a conglomeration, really, with a little lab fiction, fictitious elaboration. People and experiences that I had during my time. So the themes are kind of pertinent to today's world with medicine, with big pharma, with the huge medical conglomeration that we all sort of get sucked into, kind of lose our control of ourselves as we get sucked into the control of the medical world. Ethics and yeah, working with kids, with kids and with babies, there's definitely certainly compassion. So I always, or in this book and in my next book, I want to include a lot of heart to the story. So it's not just thriller. Families are affected, families are involved, and that's I try to balance the exciting thriller part with the heart of the family.
Indeed, the heart of the family. Which character was the most challenging to write and why?
Um, I think probably the most challenging character to write about was the protagonist. It took me a while to give her a personality because she did not come from somebody who I knew directly, and I probably should have done that. It would have been easier. So I had to create her from the get go, and I would go down this way, and she'd know that didn't work for her, and so there was a lot of stopping and starting, and eventually evolved into an interesting character. Because when I first wrote the book, the very first version of it was very plot driven. That's what I wanted to write about was the plot of what happened in this hospital. And I learned that you can't do that. People want to read about characters. So then I went back to square one and did some more character development with a lot of the characters. And the protagonist, for whatever reason, she was the hardest because I needed to really create an interesting protagonist and watch her change and evolve and develop from the beginning of the story to the end of the story.
Miss Hodge, what message do you hope readers take away from this book?
I have to say it is really for entertainment, but there are absolutely messages in there about patriarchy of the medical system, big pharma, and watch out. In this particular book, big pharma takes praise on the guilt of parents, saying, "Don't you want to help your child out? This is what you need to do." So big pharma, the patriarchy, medical ethics, which are, really can be very shady. It's not always black and white. Um, So to be these are what's happening in the real medical world, and hopefully nobody falls prey to the worst of them.
Yes, for sure. Miss Julie, let's talk about the characters. How did you approach writing the dynamics between caregivers and those they care for?
That again came from personal experience, because working when you have a this takes place in a neonatal intensive care unit, and when you have a very premature baby, they spend weeks and often months in the intensive care nursery, and with that comes, strong relationships between caregivers and parents, and and the relationships go on even after the baby goes home. I mean, it's a really incredibly strong bond, and it's a kind of relationship that the parents will never have with anybody else, and the nurse or nurse practitioner or doctor will never have, um, with another parent. So it's a really close, tight, and I mean, you're dealing with kids and babies, and so of course there's a very strong bond, um, and it's it kind of made it not easy, but not so difficult to write about those relationships because I lived them. They were a part of the job, which made it a little bit easier to bring them into the book.
Did you draw from personal experiences or real life stories when crafting the narrative?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you that the idea for this book came from a real life conversation I had with colleagues when it was a very, very busy time in the NICU, and premature births were really high. We're saving more and more babies at younger and younger ages, and it was really intense. And we were 12 shifts, sometimes not even stop and go to the bathroom and eat. It was really intense, so intense. So at one point, it was so crazy. I turned to my colleague and I said, "What is?" And I said the name of the VP of nursing. "What is she doing? Is she going out on the street and and bringing in pregnant women and making them deliver their babies?" And that that's the premise. I mean, that's how crazy it was. We were like, "What is happening here?" So that was the premise. That was how I got the idea of this book, and that was a long time ago. And so that was that conversation was the beginning of it. And then certainly there are relationships between nurses and the doctors and the patients, that come from living those years in intensive care.
Were there any scenes you found particularly emotional to write?
Yeah, there is a scene or several scenes where Sophie is the name of the protagonist, where her baby is, I mean, the baby is critically ill from day one because he's born way, way too early, 3.5 months too early, on the cusp of viability. But then as he gets over that hard part, stabilizes, and then several weeks into it all, has a big, big, big setback, and nearly dies without trying to ruin things. But this is in the middle of the book, so you know that he can't die because it's not the end of the book. But I mean, again, that came from real life experience, and I remember what that was like, with the people that were involved in the real life incident. So um, that was emotional for sure.
Miss Julie, what research did you do to accurately portray caregiving in medical settings?
Again, it's my own, and actually, I do like doing research. Trying to think of what I used in this book for research. I would look up certain disorders, certain medications, certain statistics, that I put into the book. And I've done a lot of research. I've written for medical journals, nursing journals. So the research is I really enjoy doing it, and it definitely goes into any kind of a medical thriller, as far as I'm concerned, or probably any kind of a book. And again, as far as the caregiving, that was just was just based on my own experiences and my friends' experiences, my colleagues, and stories that we shared throughout all of our time together.
Did the story evolve in ways you did not expect while writing it?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I had started. It had been plot driven to begin with, and had to go back and add character. And there's writing books. People talk about you're either a plotter or a pantser. Plotter, you plan it out from beginning to the end with a strict outline, and pantser is you just sort of go by the seat of your pants and see what happens. And I do both. Mostly, I have an outline, but I find the best writing and the most creative and most surprising, as you're just asking about, is when you're a pantser, when you just sort of sit down and say, okay, what am I going to write today? What's going to happen now? What is Sophie going to do this time? And you just write it, and it's kind of fascinating because I listen to Sophie, or I talk to Sophie, the protagonist, and the story goes where she wants to take it. And it's, I think, only if you're a writer can you kind of appreciate that, because it sounds really strange, but it's true. And that is really the most fun part of writing a book, is when that happens.
Miss Julie, how did you balance the heavier themes with moments of hope and lightness?
Yeah. My editor helped with that. He'd say, you can't have this such seriousness. You can't have this be so the reader's going to put the book down because it's just too much. So he helped with that, and because I do tend to write on the dark and the serious. That's how life is in intensive care. But it's so obviously equally important to have the levity, which we definitely had in intensive care. And there were times in the book where the nurses and the doctors would be making jokes that only nurses and doctors could appreciate as kind of sick humor. But so I was aware. My like I say, my editor helped make me aware of adding levity, and again, we do that in the intensive care. You have to if you want to be able to survive. So it is certainly a balancing act, and there's a time and a place for the seriousness, and a time and a place for not so serious.
Indeed. Totally balanced. Did you always know how the story would end, or did it change during the writing process?
No, it did change during the writing process. I think I know how I knew sort of how I wanted it to end. And I had two different endings, and I used a rather different kind of an ending. My editor had said, maybe, maybe not, but I chose it. It does tribute to actually to Robin Cook and his book Coma, which I absolutely loved. So it's got sort of a funky ending. And I did not know how that was always going to work out. Eventually, as you obviously you write and you write and you write and say, okay, I want to get to here, and then you got to figure out how you're going to get to the end. But the ending changed over the course of time, definitely, and really changed when I decided to make the decision. When I made the decision to add this more unusual kind of an ending. You have to read it to find out, I guess, huh?
Interesting indeed, Miss Julie. As an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
Um, right now, I started. Well, I'm working on promoting this book. I'd like to get this book out and sold successfully. Um, but I've also started my second book, which um, I'm working really hard. I'm trying to hurry up and get, not hurry up, I'm trying to really work on it because I want to get it out, or at least the publisher in the next year or so, 6 months maybe. So that is my short-term goal, to get that book written. And all the time I keep coming up with ideas. Oh, maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do that. I might do medical historical fiction is kind of intriguing to me. Historical fiction is intriguing to me. Maybe there's medical historical fiction. Um, and nonfiction, I have done, I'm a parent, and I've done work with parent coaching with from my work in pediatrics. So all kinds of things. But for sure, my second novel will be coming out in the next year or two, I hope.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Julie, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your
Hmm.
advice for those people out there who want to write their own book?
I say go for it. A lot of
Yes.
people, well, um, just do it. Just sit down and write and write and write and write. That's how I got started. I went on a writer's retreat and we were told to just write no matter what. Just write, 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 write. Even if it's just blah, blah, blah. And eventually thoughts start to come and you write and it just flows. And the more you write, the better you get at it. And it's not that it becomes easy, but it's just it becomes more flowy and more fun. And so not to second guess yourself, not judge yourself, not say, oh, I never do it myself, not saying but I wrote it anyways, and so there you have it. So if you want to read a book, by all means, it's really, it's very, it can be therapeutic. It can be, it's my happy place. It is the happiest place that I know. So by all means, give it a shot and stick with it. Do it. Just write.
Just write and write and write, people, and stop procrastinating. If you have the passion to write, share to the world. Yes, my like Miss Julie Hatch. Thank you for your advice, Miss Julie. And let's talk about the reader engagement and impact. How do you think readers in the caregiving profession will relate to this book?
I hope that they relate really favorably with it and can relate very much with it. I really hope so. I really do think so too. I think there, as I'm talking to you right now, I'm picturing scenes and I'm thinking, I know that other nurses and nurse practitioners that I've worked with, how they would, laugh at some, they will, I think, chuckle at something and say, oh, yeah, I know what she's talking about. I think it's very relatable. Yeah, I think it's very relatable to the healthcare professionals. Probably more I've worked as a nurse practitioner and as a nurse, and this is well, no, there's doctors and nurse relationships in there, and they're just really relatable because they come from my experience in my life as a nurse practitioner.
Have you received any feedback from readers that surprise or move you?
I have gotten feedback from various reviewers, Kirkus Review, and other fellow writers. I would love to have gotten a review from Robin Cook, but that didn't happen. Not this one. Maybe the next novel I'll be able to approach him. So yeah, I've gotten some very nice feedback from other writers and some readers so far too.
Miss Julie, if this novel were adapted into film or series, who would you envision playing the main characters?
Um, the main characters, I certainly have images of them. One of the so the protagonist would be, and I'm not very good at, I don't watch a whole lot of movies. I'm not very good at names of actors and actresses, but she would be an Italian actress, beautiful long locks of dark hair, sweet, innocent, big brown eyes. And I don't know, whoever that may be. The one of the other characters would be the guy who played in Jaws, the scientist guy with the curly hair and the glasses. What was his name? I don't remember.
Yes.
Um, um, the other, again, I have the images in my mind, but I cannot. I'm sorry, I'm not so good at actors and actresses and their names and what they're in.
Yes. No worries, Miss Julie. No worries. And looking forward for this, either a film or a series. And do you see yourself revising these characters or themes in future works?
Yeah, there's in the second book that I'm working on now, there is a um, connection between one of the main characters and the hospital from this book that we're talking about. It's not so it's a series. It's not a first, second, third series, but it's a series. They are related, not tightly. You don't have to read one before the other, but they are themes come up and certain people come up between the book, second book after the first book.
Yes, stand alone, people. So, Miss Julie, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast because my abstract poetry, just give me a minute, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, people. Fifth season, abstract poetry in
Ah,
second season, and of course my book 101 review in its fifth season too, comedy 101 in its second season, food 101 in fifth season, geography 101 and love letters are in third season, and my baby podcast mental health 101 and Movie 101 review and Music 101 in its fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. So please do listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Julie, what do you believe makes the very best care of a stand out among the other books about caregiving and human connection?
well, I think that it's a standout because it is really authentic. It is my authentic voice with my authentic experience. And that's one thing that people say about the book is that it's very realistic and both emotionally and the environment and physically, and it's very realistic. And as far as standing out from other thrillers, it does add a big, as I had said before, a heart component. It's not just blood and guts, or it's not just um, thriller kind of adrenaline stuff. There's some heart and some emotion in it as well, which is, I think, really important to make a well-rounded, interesting novel.
Yes, indeed. Interesting novel, Miss Julie. Again, thank you so much for sharing. You're the very best. Okay. So, can you
Thank you,
please?
Daniel.
No worries. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book?
Yes, you can find my book on, well, it's coming out June 3rd. You can pre-order now. It's available at barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, and bookshop.com. And you can go to my website, which is juliehatchbooks.com, and you can order it from there as well. So I hope you enjoy it. I think it's well worth the read.
Yes, indeed. Yes, people, let's support Miss Julie Hatch because if you support her, more and more and more novel to come or novels to come. So, Miss Julie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Been a pleasure.
More to come, people. See you soon.